if we as professionals assume that non-professionals can understand what we're doing, cannot understand data, that we're losing a partnership with the community is very important. With the current attacks on public education and problems with funding and all that, it is the community itself who wants excellent schools that will save those schools. So instead of hiding data, we need them to see the data without making it finger pointing or blaming, saying, okay, let's look at the problem, but not from the point of view there's just something wrong with the student or the parent. What is it that we need to do in the institution to improve things? And I think that the spur from parents and community with good information can be a source of change that's positive and ultimately keep those doors open. We were introducing our data portal to a group of Spanish-speaking parents, and our information is in English and in Spanish. And in fact, we moved to a computer lab from the room where we were meeting with the parents so they could sit at computers. And most of them were not tech savvy. But we helped them see, in their computer and on the screen, some of the information about the school. And it had just so happened that around that time the school had received one of those letters, the parents had received those letters that say that the school was not achieving adequate yearly progress in mathematics. What it meant was that over 50% of the sophomores that took the math test did not do well in it. Well, as one lady said, in Spanish she said, we're failing algebra, we the school, which is a good response because then it's saying, okay, so it's not just these students are failing, we as a school. And so they said, we need to know more. So from that, a conversation ensued where, we said, well, you can do a survey. So they put some questions together. And we helped them do some so that they were quantifiable on a Likert scale. It was, one statement was, my children receive high marks or high grades in math. From never to always, 5 choices. And another one was, because they had had a conversation with some of the students about the math classes themselves, and it said students are encouraged to ask questions. Now this was not in the data, but these questions emerged from them looking at a collection of data that said a lot of students are not performing well on the state test and the math portion of the test. And so they said, well, let's ask something about what happens in the classroom. So it's students are encouraged to ask questions from never to always. And when students don't understand a concept, it's taught in a different way. These were key things that they had heard the students talking about and wanted to delve more into it. So some parents were surveyed and some students were surveyed. And what was very interesting is the parents gave higher marks to something good happening, although they questioned, than the students. And the data was then collected and presented by a group of students who happened not to be very themselves model students. As they presented the data, one of the students said, it seems that the parents gave above a 3, for example, to the encouragement to ask questions, and most of us that were surveyed said less than 3. It was not often. And as one young lady had put it, it seems like the teacher's teaching on roller skates. In other words, the chapters were being covered within a time frame with certain speed to quote, cover them, had nothing to do with their comprehension or whether students are understanding. So that from those 2 points that the parents got insights and the questions evolved from their initial conversations was, at a minimum, are questions being encouraged in the class? And secondly, if a concept is not understood, is it taught in a different way? And these were very basic concepts that the parents arrived at that had tremendous influence in terms of professional development for the teachers. And so here you have parents that speak very little English, certainly aren't algebra teachers and might not understand much about algebra, but they have very good common sense ideas about whatever else happens. It is important, number 1, that the students be encouraged to ask their questions, and number 2, that there be a variety of ways to teach the concept. especially if a lot of students aren't understanding it. This came from looking at data, and what was very powerful about this, because who the parents were, this was a very large high school. It had about 3,000 students. It was a border school. About 80 to 90% of the students were on free or reduced lunch. It was a economically disadvantaged, a poor community, financially poor, not in spirit but in money. And they would be a group of parents that typically would be said of them, they don't care, they don't understand, and even if we tell them the data, they can't make sense of it. If data is presented in meaningful chunks, parents will look at it, will ask the right questions, and if supported and encouraged, will take steps to at least dig deeper in a way that will help the school understand, here's what we need to do to resolve this problem.